Hi guys, in this video I want to talk about UV unwrapping in Blender and how to keep all your files in order, especially when you export a model with its material as a .obj and .mtl file. So first things first, because I'm going to be really focused on what files are created and where, I want to start with a completely empty folder here, my downloads folder. And let's create a Blender project. And let's take something very simple and do a UV unwrap on it. Now, I highly recommend the lynda.com tutorials on UV unwrapping, but this is just like the basics. So here we go. Over here, I'm in edit mode. I'm going to select edges to mark as a seam. Think of it as the spaces that we would cut our model with scissors so that we could unfold it flat onto the ground. So I'm marking a seam. Obviously cube, very simple to do this. More complex models gets a lot worse. Then I'm going to do an unwrap. Unwrap will only work, by the way, if you select everything. I did that with hitting A couple times. There it is. So that's a flat texture. If it really bothers you that it's like misaligned, you can press R to rotate it or whatever, and G to grab. Okay, the point is that this is going to be a PNG file that we can then edit in some external tool. So here I'm going to say UV, export UV layout, and the first lesson is everything needs to be in the same folder. It's going to be a PNG file. I'm going to call it cube texture.png. And now if we look back in our folder, we have cube texture.png. By the way, I'm going to go ahead in Blender and save this project as in the downloads folder again. And I'll just call it SivaCube.blend. Okay, SivaCube.blend saved. SivaCube.blend is there. CubeTexture.png is there. And if we open this with some application for editing images, like this guy, who I'm going to move to the same window, we can then draw on this with any image editor that we want. And I'm just going to do a little bit of, wow, that's terrible. Do I really have to, man, you guys are killing me. All right, let's see, just filling in some stuff. Okay, and you draw on this however you want. You can do squigglies, you can, all right, sure, file, overwrite cubetexture.png. So now, if you come in here and hit refresh, image, I guess you have to hit open image, cubetexture.png. There it is. It's not showing up here until you tell this guy to render the texture. And there it is. And if you go to object mode, it's maybe even a little bit easier to see. Now, due to lighting and things, it's a little bit hard to see the other colors. But let me do a rotate about Z. There's that green side, okay? And that's fine. Okay? Now, going back to regular viewing mode, it disappears. Let me tell this thing to use a texture. There it is. But it's not really textured, as in this is just a preview mode of the current UV file that we have open. If you want to create a texture, you need to have a material, and that material then has to have an incorporated texture. You do all that through the material file. Here's my material. And that material, cube material text, is got a default empty texture. This is where I want to actually put in the right texture. Let me prove to you that it's not there, but first of all, if I hit render, render image, no texture on the cube. Press escape to get out, go back in here, and hit open, grab that texture. Then down here, because I took the time to create a UV map, I need to say UV mapping. And cool, now if I go to render, render image, it's textured. Okay. Now I'm going to hit save. So what files do we have in our folder now? We have the Blender file and the PNG file. We don't have anything from an export, but here's the secret. When we do our export, and we're using Wavefront, at least in this demo, .obj file, we're also going to select downloads. But before we do that, we want to make sure and we tell the external data to make all paths relative. If you do all that, all paths relative, then when you hit export .obj and export to the same folder, everything needs to be in the same folder, then what you have are all of these files in the same folder. And most importantly, this MTL file and this .obj file point to the texture file. Let me show you how that works real quick. Just let me open it up in a text editor real quick. Atom space SivaCube .obj. The .object file is a file with just the vertices and the normals for the cube, but it has a reference to the material that we made. The material file .mtl is a file that just has some information about how to use the material, which is a very basic material, but it has a reference to the PNG. And because this is a relative reference, it's just the name of the file. And this is a relative reference, it's just the name of the file. Then as long as everything is in the same folder, we are happy campers. And that means that if you need to import this into another application, like a processing project, you can take the MTL, the object, and the PNG, and they will play nicely together. You put all those together, and they can all find each other at all times as long as they're in the same directory. Okay, that's it. That's what I wanted to point out. Good luck.